who are present today. I'll take the apologies, and I do have an apology from Councillor Sharon.
Who was there, Bill?
Oh, sorry. I have an apology from Councillor Sharon Lewis, who attended her uncle-in-law's funeral today. I attended that funeral also, and Councillor Kennedy also attended. We have an apology from Councillor Lynette Whitestone, who is ill at the moment. We have an apology from Councillor Mark Franklin, who's on duty as a police officer. And we have an apology from Stan, who's Councillor Sam Bishop, who is a new mum, as we all are aware. Are there any further apologies from the staff members? If not, we have, excuse me. Oh, and Brian Carr, our CEO. Apology for the nice meeting. Any further staff members? Apology? No? Okay, we'll move on. There's no leave of absence, no non-attendance at this stage. The confirmation of the minutes of the confidential minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 28th of June 2022. Would someone like to move that they be a true and correct record? Councillor Dean, would someone like to second that? Councillor Jason, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. We move on now to communications, and I'm up first. Probably the most outstanding thing that happened to me once again in this period was our Australian Day citizenship ceremony. And I thank Stacey very much for her, as per usual, meticulous eye for detail. It's always a lovely occasion, and everything once again was spot on for this particular event. It makes me very, very happy and very proud as an Australian citizen. And I think I've mentioned it before, that all the roles I play as mayor, this is the one that gives me the greatest pleasure. So there's always such a nice feeling to be able to bestow citizenship on people making this country their home. Also, I had the great pleasure once again to present the Duxford Xavier College with the Medal Award. The Duxford Sheriff was a lovely young lady called Kelly Mendou. Her results are just absolutely outstanding, to the point where she actually won a state award for a Governors Award for Excellence as well. An outstanding student, and that school is an absolutely outstanding school, producing once again extraordinary results. I think their safes completion is 100%. There wouldn't be too many schools around that can boast that, but they do. And they have 29 A-grade or plus students in the school. That's great merits. So that was quite an extraordinary achievement from here. Once again, they were pretty happy to be out for us. Also, we met with our new tourism minister and Minister of Multicultural Affairs, Zoe Beddison. Zoe's a friend of mine. She's an ex-high school student and a very good friend with our Councillor Dean as well, who was her principal at the school when she was there. Zoe's come a long way in her legal career already, and to have her up here as Tourism Minister of Multicultural Affairs was an excellent opportunity for us to be able to promote the projects that we're looking for some guidance and assistance in the future. We presented, of course, the Drivers Encounter, and she was aware of this project and was absolutely taken back with Colin Chappell's presentation, and which reflected not just the pretty side of what's happening, the realities of what we need to do to make that. And I really thank Colin for an excellent presentation, so professional. And I know Zoe and Minister Benson went away from this chamber very, very confident that their government will support this project. And I think that's what we're waiting to hear. Also, last Friday, I had the pleasure of going to Jamestown as a member of the South Australian Regional Organisation of Councils. We had a meeting up there with a group, and it was interesting sitting around the table at the start. I looked around and made a comment that I was the only person in the room with a tie on. And it used to be the opposite way. Well, times have changed. So you must see a new man that's been in the future councils. But no, that's always a great pleasure to go to those events, meet the young mayors, meet from the various regions of South Australia, find out what's going on and see where the common threads are. And that's why the Regardless Group, which is our regional body of councils, we're aware of 15 councils. It's so important that we keep that leadership going, we keep attending that meetings of the Regardless Group. That makes up what we call the stable. That's probably just about enough from me. Are there any council members who would like to report in that? Thanks, Councillor Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment about the Gawler River Hall. I know members might know that Gawler River Hall is a community-based hall at Gawler River, which is not owned by the council, it's owned by the hall community itself, and it's adjacent to the Gawler River Church. And the Uniting Church wanted to sell off the old church, the Gawler Church wants to sell the Gawler River Church, which includes the cemetery. So after some negotiations, they've offered to transfer, retitle it and transfer the cemetery to the hall. It costs probably about $20,000 to cover all the surveillance and fees and whatever. So the hall is quite keen to do it, but it's in the process of trying to raise that sort of funds, because it doesn't have that sort of money. So just to let you know that there's something happening down there at Gawler River, and hopefully they can raise enough money to pay the Uniting Church for the surveying costs and so forth.
Thanks, Councillor Bill. Anything further, councillors? We'll just go back a step. It's remiss of me not to certainly first we introduced Kimberly McBorders. Kimberly's been with us for a couple of years now, but plays a low profile. She's the organisation's development manager. Organisations development manager. Get that right one day. And we welcome you tonight, and I hope you enjoy our meeting and get to understand what happens in this chamber. So welcome, Kimberly. Also, to thank Councillor Dean for his effort in taking on that the last council meeting. I agonised over that. I know I felt so terrible. I felt like I'd thrown Dean to the wolves. It was probably the most extensive council meeting agenda-wise that we've had for probably the last couple of years. And I thought that's the one I've thrown Dean under the bus. But thankfully, his great skills and his attention to detail and his ability to review the council agenda and understand what it means and do all that, make the meeting, as I understand, move on particularly well. At one stage we were looking at perhaps maybe carrying the meeting over to a second night. There was that much to talk about. But many things are put clearly, the council members react to that. And I think I've got a few lessons to learn there, but so I think I'll stay away too many times. One get the job back. But so thank you, very much indeed, and like to make that public. You do a terrific job. And that comes back to me from many councillors as well.
Indeed, Alec, that was very kind of you. Thank you.
So that's a pleasure. We move on to councillors to the general business, which we don't have any. Pardon me. We move on now to deputations and presentations, and we do have one tonight. And it's my great pleasure to introduce Liz Williams and Lizzie Mullins from the Cumberland Rifle Club to give us a bit of an outline on what the club is doing down in this part of our council region. Just a little bit of background is I found out today that this club is the oldest rifle club in Australia. And they're not coming here tonight to ask us for anything. They're coming here to ask us for our advice and for our support. And I think we'll be very keen to know what I have planned for the future. The clubhouse was actually built in 1974. It was opened by Sir Commodore Lauke. And interestingly enough, I was with Sir Commodore's son, young Commodore, at the funeral today, and we were talking about this very matter. He said, I think the old man took me to that. His dad, Mr. Commodore Lauke, was the Speaker of the House of Representatives in Australia in the very kind man and very well considered person. So that was interesting. So the club itself dates back up a long way, but they've kept to themselves in immersive settings, and you wouldn't get a lot of people in our region, certainly in the town here even, that know much about them. They keep themselves and just get on with what they do. But it's another jewel in the crown when it comes to seeing it. We've got a club here that's the oldest in Australia. And welcome you guys and music if you like to take a listen and let us know what you've got planned.
I'm glad you introduced us. Thank you very much. Well, I'll put Lindsay sitting here if you want, so he doesn't have to stand up for too long. But here is good.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I do have, good evening everyone, and yes, thank you very much for the Capona Rifle Club for allowing us to come along tonight. I've got two documents that I'd like to read out tonight. One is one that I wrote, and the other is an email from the chairman of the South Australian Rifle Association. His name is Michael Terriero, and he's very supportive of the Capona Rifle Club. But I'll get on with it. The sport of long-range target shooting is one of the most challenging sports available today. Not only must participants learn to control their minds and bodies and concentrate with good focus, but they must also learn to adjust their aim according to the weather conditions, which play a big part of the sport. And they do play a huge part of this discipline. It takes time and experience to become proficient at it. It's a very competitive sport, as all are aware of the skills required to perform well in difficult weather. And the sport encourages improvement in mental ability and self-confidence. The goal of our constitution is to promote and encourage the sport of rifle shooting. In the early 1860s, Capona was a thriving community. In those days, pretty much everyone owned a firearm, and shooting was very popular among the mine workers and volunteer military regiments. In 1864, the Capona Rifle Club was officially established and has been operating consistently since then. In 2 years' time, the Capona Rifle Club will be 160 years old, and it is one of the oldest sporting clubs still in existence in Australia. I transferred to the Capona Rifle Club in 1993 after 13 years as a member of the Adelaide Rifle Club at the Dean Range in Port Adelaide. And the Capona Rifle Club was well known and respected by all of the metropolitan rifle clubs. I've always enjoyed the positive and pleasant atmosphere of the weekly shoots, and all members are aware and proud of the long-standing history of our club. Over time, the government support for all shooting disciplines has faded, but many people still wish to own and compete with firearms and are able to do so in a safe and proper manner at our club. In this day and age, equality is a prominent consideration. We've got age, gender, race, disability, etc. But they don't affect any person's ability to compete in our discipline at any level. In our club, the membership ranges from 14 to 90 years old. Our female members have all competed as members of the state teams. We also have 5 members in the current state team, which won the national championships in Bendigo only 2 months ago. 4 of our members, including myself, have competed in overseas international competitions, including in Canada, USA, United Kingdom and New Zealand, and one was a world champion for an entire year. Our range is not only used by us, but is regularly used by SAPOL to complete their firearms training. It's used by TAFE SA once a month to provide firearms licence courses. International top grade teams visiting Australia practice on our range, and when this occurs, we've encouraged them to stay in Capona and enjoy the food in the historical town. The Capona Rifle Club doesn't overcharge its members, and our fees and costs have remained fair and stable for decades. But in the past few years, we've noticed that due to ageing infrastructure, we're going to need to replace and refurbish several buildings and upgrade the power supply and phone signal reception. For example, most of a very old clubhouse, this is not the one built in 74, this one was built back in the 40s, and it's been eaten out with termites. And the club's working towards replacing it, but the SA Power Network supplies attached to that building. SA Power Networks require a large sum of money to just relocate the power supply to 1 metre away so that then we can demolish the building. Due to the increase in membership, and the increased range use, the bathroom amenities have become too small and very outdated. They sort of there in 1974. And for the past 5 years, we've applied for a government grant to build a new amenities block with access for disabled people and a cleaner environment. And this has been to no avail. Due to our upgrade to electronic targets, which is a substantial but very worthwhile expense, the club desperately needs to improve the phone signal on the range to enable data uploading and security upgrades. We at the moment can't have cameras there, we don't have the internet to enough signal on the range to make it secure. The Capunda Rifle Club, we're very appreciative of the support provided by the Light Regional Council regarding our land race, and the club also has the strong support of the South Australian Rifle Association, which is our governing body. Whilst no figures are mentioned here, I was asked to provide this document to explain the current undertakings of our club and promote discussion with the council to determine ways to move forward. That's the end of that one. I'll just read out the email from Mick Ontario. This is to the Capunda Council from the chairman of the South Australian Rifle Association. It says, I would fully endorse the Capunda Rifle Club in their application for funding to further enhance the club's ability to continue its progressive outlook in providing a safe and responsible future for our sport to continue. Capunda Rifle Club is affiliated with both state and national bodies, which provide leadership and guidance to all clubs. The Capunda Rifle Club has been part of the Capunda Township for over 150 years, has a strong and functioning membership. Within the ranks of its members, they currently have 2 members which have won world team titles and one ranked individually as number 3 in the world. National teams champions, number 8, and several state champions. Capunda has a very good reputation within Australia, which sees this venue used by both state and national teams as a training ground for events, both national and international. Any help in funding would be used to improve the facilities and highlight its importance to be part of Australia's competitive shooting fraternity. Regards, Michael Puncher. Like I said, no figures have been mentioned, but we really would like the council to consider, as Bill asked, any way possible that they could possibly help us either to pay us power networks or provide an amenity block, or at least if anyone knows how to upgrade the phone signal and this sort of thing. If anyone's got any questions, this is where I'd like to hand it over to Lindsay as the president of the Rifle Club and direct any questions to him. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks so much, Chris. Lindsay, Councillor, would you like to any questions to Lindsay? Councillor Cannon?
Yes, Lindsay, I'm an old-time shooter.
Yes.
And the service competition, and then Metropolitan Club competition, and continuing as a sport shooter, being out on the land. I wonder if you could fill us in just a few details. What is your full bore range?
Full bore range ranges from 300 metres back to 1,000 at this point in time. So it's quite a distance and quite competitive.
Another question, do you, apart from full bore shooting, do you have any facilities for play target shooting or small bore? That's 22.
Correct, yeah. No, we did go down the road looking at clay shooting. It posed a bit of a problem as far as gathering up lead, etc., debris, so it was abandoned. As far as small bore, that can be achieved next to a pistol club, whereby you've got a shorter range and you've got pistols, and they have shot 22 rifle there before. So there's no reason why it couldn't be regenerated and brought forward.
Yeah, well, my comment is that the club's been there as long as it has, but the majority of people around the area don't seem to be aware of it. and I'm sure that there's potential interest out there, and it's a great sport.
It is a good sport and a very safe sport because it's run by strict guidelines. I agree with what you say, it's not advertised enough, but there's several reasons for that. And one is that there's already been brought up a security problem is a real issue. And it's one of the issues that we're trying to deal with the rest of it. But yes, it's certainly something that needs to be addressed and probably advertised more. I agree.
Finally, apart from your conventional full ball shooting, I'm back in the Leonfield days and then the Omar target rifles. What about other classes, say for sporting rifles with optical sights and that sort of thing?
Quite right. That's recently been introduced, and that is actually being introduced right now for the sporting rifles and hunting rifles. So it's another avenue for somebody to come out and have a crack at it. It's not a problem.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Councillor John?
Being an out of town, I don't even know where the rock club is. Can you perhaps tell us where it is, and do you own the land, or is it?
That's another thing. We're fortunate we do own the land, and we're directly behind, next door to Maintain Quarries, or directly behind Johnson's Mill, whichever way you want to look at it, down Kilk Road, area Kilk Road. So, yes, it's quite a nice facility and a very nice setting. So, yeah, it's worthwhile coming and have a look if you get the opportunity.
And the secret dollar figures you haven't mentioned, do you want to mention them now, or? The dollar figures for the communication and for the toilet facilities.
Look, in all honesty, we are simply here to put forward the issues that we have, and whatever help you guys can give will be gratefully received. And it's basically it. Yeah.
No, thank you, Lizzie. That was the whole purpose of inviting you tonight to let the council members, sorry.
Just a question, Lindsay, mentioned and Liz mentioned tonight, communication and moving from power, the power obviously has that straight away. Which do you rate more urgently, the communication or the solutions? Have you got, are they equally important, or have you got one that's more must do than the other?
Must do is the power, and yes, secondly would be the communications for sure.
Yeah. And that would be what, putting up a repeater out, doesn't it?
Yeah, putting up there would be.
Thank you.
Yeah, getting back to that, thank you, Lizzie. And the whole idea was to present tonight to the council, to give some background to the club, and we've done that really well. I think some of the things that you've raised with us, the power and the communication and so forth, need to be addressed, and need to be addressed reasonably urgently, as it seems. What I would put to the club, I'm sure the council members would have done, would support this, that if you work up, going from what Dean said also, work up what you want to do and what the priorities are and what perhaps some of the costings are. And then we just have a look at that and sort of see where we can fit in, or where we can, and what other advice we can provide to you as well. So this is a really good stepping stone, I think, to get that first leg in the door. Come up with a list, a shopping list of the things that we need in priority order, and see if you can't get some costings. I mean, I know it's difficult to get exact figures, but if you're not going to get some costings on through South Australian power networks in particular, on what's
they're being quite difficult, but there's a fair team out there to have a look. It's something that's we're getting around and working out. We've got a couple of people involved which are trying to work on figures to get it down. At the moment it's quite ridiculous to be honest, but it's got to work
But you've made us aware of that now, and I think that's really good, so I'm sure the council members here will appreciate what you've presented tonight. And so, refreshing to see that so many champions, for the, of down there.
You better come next.
Well, yes, certainly.
Yeah, three, Mr. Mayor. Just out of interest, what's the membership of the club?
At the moment, we're sitting at around 40 in the rifle club, very similar in the pistol club. But, you know, there's a total of 80 plus people out there.
And is that like 80 on a regular basis?
No, they normally float in and out. You get on the average maybe 20 odd shooters.
Thank you.
Is there anything further, councillors? If not, thank you once again, Lizzie and Les. Most informative, and I think we've all got a much better understanding of one of Australia's oldest sporting clubs. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to introduce the topic? Welcome to.
Thank you very much. Well done. Thank you.
We leave the Councillor Moore, may I ask you a question?
Yes,
You shot for Metropolitan Rifle Club.
yes.
Did you shoot with Tammy Lewin and John McDermott? Of course, they were back then when the 3 hours finishing the IMAX was starting. A couple of the nicest men I've ever been, so.
Now, I shot while I was at the university, the Adelaide University Rifle.
University Rifle Club. They were next door to the Adelaide Rifle.
And yes,
That they were nice. Yeah.
and also, weekend warrior shooting. I didn't shoot in the army, I shot for the army.
Right.
So I must have been doing things fairly right.
Excellent.
It was Lee Enfield, and then, of course, the army adopted the SLR. And it was interesting that, as we found it, in service rifle shooting, the Lee Enfield was more accurate than the SLR.
Yes.
And there were team shoots down at Dean Range.
That's right. Yes.
And the RAA at Edinburgh, we were forced to go 7.62. They have a range at Edinburgh. They were practicing all the time. And so you put in money into the kitty at the beginning, and they cleaned it up every time.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you're a part of the history of shooting. All the best to all of you. Thanks.
Councillor, go back to page 22, page 7 of the agenda, action items. Action items 8.1. Anything on that page, Councillor Rice? Concerned with?
Yes.
Councillor Canali?
If I may, there's one there about the free and wastewater treatment plant upgrade. Can we get any idea of cost, when the project is likely to start? Just general details that aren't really covered in the notes.
Yes, through the chair, all of that information is included in the reports themselves. But we are finalising the actual contract at the moment, and we would expect construction within the next few months to start. It won't be completed until probably April next year. That's the full project completed. It'll be the first part, which is the treatment plant itself, will be done ahead of that.
Also, another quick question. Any idea of the approximate cost? We heard a figure of $3 million quoted.
Yep, it would be in that vicinity, probably just a little bit more, but we'll have some further information once we've finalised the contract and also any external funding that might come our way as well.
Anything further, councillors? Move on to the next page. I don't know what to call it, just the next page. Page 8, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Simon.
Just a question for the 28/6/22. It's a notice of motion, confidential items. I was just wondering if that's already on the website.
Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks, councillor Bell. So it, we'll be going forward with it, so waiting for obviously the minutes to be released tonight, or adopted and released tonight, and then we'll then put on the website. So it will be going forward, but we needed these minutes to be released, and then that information will get provided this week.
Thank you. Any further councillors on that page 8? No, thanks, Dave, for that. Page 9. Whole lot of complete, so nice work. Councillor Simon?
Just a question about the COA of, what is it, 28/06/22, notion motion council assessment panel 1. Sorry, I'm at the wrong spot here. Right, council assessment panel meeting procedure, and it says CEO has sent correspondence to the presiding member of the Ellison Council Assessment Panel. I just wondering if we are able or allowed to see that correspondence.
Okay, through the chair. Yeah, that's a problem. We'll provide that separately. Whilst we're on that, Craig, is there anything in there that we should know about that's important?
Through the chair, the correspondence simply conveyed the council's position of the resolution for the last meeting. So it raised the items that featured in the notice of motion. So those are the matters that flowed on from the correspondence that had been received previously to that. And the request was made that the correspondence been taken with the cabinet. So I understand that a separate conversation has happened in relation to that. That's the intention of the next step, the correspondence.
So they will correspond back to us with the outcome of our question.
Yes, so that probably enough for the cap ultimately. Really, this is about conveying the council's request, as we know. And then what the cap chooses to do with that will be known for the cap to come back to us. So I'll leave that in the cap's court accordingly, so to speak. But no, in terms of the next steps, we can provide that correspondence and go from there.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Anything further, councillors, on that page? This page. No, so that's the end of those one-time matters. Now we move into the recommendation from committees. So the first one was the Special Governance Advisory Panel meeting. And the attachments, as we're all aware, councillors, are in that confidential section. The first recommendation here says that the agenda reports the minutes of the Light Regional Council Special Governance Advisory Panel being held 5th of July 2022 be received. They are in our business papers tonight. That recommendation. The second recommendation is
I'll move the first recommendation.
thanks, Councillor Bill. Someone saying that we'll do it separately then. Councillor Peter, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. The second recommendation is that the items of GAP 3.1 independent review preliminary dog report attached to the notification of the meeting of the Light Regional Council Special Governance Advisory Panel meeting held Tuesday, 5th of July 2022, be considered by the Council under the confidential sections. Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Canali, would like to second that. Councillor Jason, all those in favour? That's correct, thanks councillors. We'll deal with that a little later. We're on to reports for information. First one there, councillors, and I think we're all excited about this one because as a determination of the remuneration tribunal of council members' allowances. There you are, councillors, that's it. We can all say that we do this for all the right reasons, and certainly money doesn't sort of come into it. So I'd like to say it's something that we do because we want to do things for our community. I feel really brilliant. Any questions, councillors, in relation to that? Pretty standard sort of matter that's over across all of the councillor Simon.
Just one question, Jimmy, as you just said there, it shouldn't be about money, so I would be happy with the previous amount paid, even less, it doesn't bother me, but one thing that sticks out to me is the mayor, in my opinion, is a bit underpaid, because you can really think VMA, that's a full-time job, so for someone to give up the full-time job, $60,000 is not really a full wage, so us as council, we can easily run a business on a full-time job next to being council, as the mayor people do that, so to me that seems to be not the obvious, could be too high, I think, but why is it the mayor paid so little, especially if you compare to the local mayor in Adelaide or something, it's staying with us.
Yeah, you raise a very good point, Councillor Simon, and I certainly don't do it for money because I couldn't. If I have to try and live on that, you take the tax out of that, I'm better going to work for Johnson's part time. And of course, that doesn't also encourage people to stand for there. You're losing a lot of people out there who can be very, very good mayors if they can have the time to do the job. Now, you limit your field, of course, because those people are either retired and they're doing it as a love, because they love their community and whatever else, and they're reasonably comfortable. Anyone who's struggling a little bit, they might have all the talent in the world and all the right reasons to take the job on, will cut them because the remuneration is pretty ordinary. I think if it wasn't taxed, it might help. But by the time you take the tax out of that, quite frankly, I can better on a pension. And that doesn't say much about the position like you rightly raising. And I think similar things can be said about the councillors. I don't think that's not related to the type of talk. You consider phone calls at night, the things that you've got to do and want to do as a councillor. Your hourly rate's pretty minor, pretty thin. And if you want to get people around the table that can do the job, you've got to pay not peanuts, you've got to pay a reasonable sort of return on their efforts. So I don't know what we can do about it, probably nothing. But we could raise the point that we were a little bit taken back, and this was raised at our council meeting, and there was some, and I don't know if there is, the rest of the members feel as strongly as yourself and I do about how we sit with this. But it's not going to attract these remuneration numbers, aren't going to attract the right people. So I think we're on the right track, trying to get them to do something about it. Because otherwise we're just going to go on as we do. And the councillors will lose the respect around the place as well as being just a mob of old fogies that really get past their best and everything else. And it's come a long way, and this council has certainly come a long way in the last few years with more women on our council custodians, younger people on our council, not to say that we shouldn't be older either, but it's nice to have a balance so we get the decisions that are being made around the table from everybody, and not just from one particular sector of the community. So, perhaps we could start to ask the questions around perhaps the regardless group to see what their view is, and probably other 15 councils in our region to see if they've got similar views to say that this should be reviewed as a whole, not just that the money I get now is going to increase next year, because it's easy to just go for the inflation rate or whatever. Really think about it, think about what the responsibilities now are far greater than they were because of social media, but nothing else. I mean, we're accessible all the time. All the time. I don't know how many other councils take any detail, a lot. messages on YouTube, not on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter and goodness knows what else. So on Instagram and all that, and the internet, email reports, and you feel the boss runs it. It takes time. And I don't think these figures are not first put together, those things even existed. So thanks for raising it. Anyone have any questions or any comments?
Through you, Mr. Member, if I might just make a comment. There's a couple of things there. These numbers, of course, are set by the independent tribunal of the state government. And I can tell you, I've been in the game long enough to recall that these allowances were never, ever anywhere near what they are now. Councillors were doing it even 10 years ago. But my suggestion would be that when the next review comes along, which will be probably December 2027, that council strongly, I urge the council to strongly make a submission to the tribunal, just along the lines that you've spoken about. And I can assure you, while I haven't read the full report, there are a number of submissions that were seeking far more substantial increases to these rates than what was actually passed by the tribunal.
Thank you, it's nice to know we're not by ourselves, but I think 2027 is a long way away. And who are this tribunal responsible to? Shouldn't that they be the people we should be talking to in the first instance to get them to have a look at how this tribunal actually operates and what they base their decisions on? And maybe that needs to be changed by the departments that can change it, or politicians. Any questions or anything else? Councillor Simon?
I just want to make my position clear. I think that remuneration for the councillors is plenty. I really think there should be purely on sort of thing to do. Should have nothing to do with money, but I think for the mayor it should be substantially higher. I don't think that the council should get any more, get less, or I'm not be fine with that. The mayor should get substantially more.
Thanks, Councillor Simon. Councillor Bennett?
Mayor Bill, I think that the amount you pay the councillor depends, it's the rate which we've got open out to the strength. I would point that is that I would probably work 1 to 2 hours free for every hour we pay for the work that I do as a councillor. And I can think back in the past where now we've probably paid $150 an hour for the work that he did. So it's how long the strength hands, I'm prepared to put in what he's prepared to do. So that makes it very difficult to the tribunal to work out a fair run because there's no way you can do it.
I guess I was trying to raise the point that if we want to get people to be really interested in council, they've got to have the skills, of course, and the passion to want to work with their community. But they've got to be given good opportunity to be able to do that. And if they're going to resign from their job because they're just getting so much council work to do, they're either going to be an in-bad councillor or just an ordinary councillor where nothing's used to happening around the chamber. Or they just resign from council anyway and easily internal. This is not what we want to see. We want to see councils be professionally paid, professionally, and we're expected to be professionally paid. We've got codes of conduct, we've got all sorts of things we're compliant with. And that's all the stuff we've got to understand, all the training we've got to do. And our responsibilities are very, very high. And I do agree very much with Simon, the mayor's role, and I'm not going to be mayor forever, but someone else is doing this job. And I feel for it a little bit. I'd like to know what they're doing now. I've heard that people come and do that, this job for that. And so I think the field narrows down considerably. Thanks, councillors. Councillor?
Yes, there's already been mentioned, but perhaps it should be brought up at the council meeting, perhaps we could
Yeah.
bring it up there and then certainly follow up with Richard's suggestion of the next submission to the tribunal. The others want to.
Well, it'd be interesting to get the views of other councillors, see if they just do a project around the council to get them all to respond in some sort of way. But I can feel something in the air in the saying tonight about this. I don't think everyone's satisfied, but just hoping that we'll be playing Russian roulette with the enumeration tribunal. I've never met one of the members. I don't even know who they are.
The magistrates, legal,
How do they know what we do? They seem to.
I remember when I got in the Australia was paying for $6,000 on
Oh, and I think we've all got our own views on that, but I think I need to express mine. I thank Councillor Simon for raising this because I didn't really know how to. But I think it's important to know where we stand. And my stand is to see the very best people when they end up for the very right reasons. Any further councillors? If not, we have to move on. The annual business plan objectives, thanks so much for this report. Richard is excellent. We all agree that we seem to be on track. Are there any comments or questions that you'd like to raise in relation to our business plan and our objectives to date?
Just one question, that is, when will we see the first draft of the 2021-2022 annual report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be corrected by my colleague at the end of the table. But I think Carrie's hoping to get a draft together sometime this coming month, August.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Gary. Seems like a challenge. No, I think we've got a lot to be thankful for in our council and in the manner that the reports have provided for us, and they're always very concise, very well presented, and certainly usually have the answers to the questions that we're going to ask. And I think more importantly, we're getting this done. This council would, and I've mentioned this in many areas, including to the Premier, and he agreed with it. Probably the most progressive council in regional South Australia. In our track record of what we've done and how we've done it and when. And I think Wednesday night or Thursday night will be another example of that. There's a $28 million cheque being presented to this council. I would suggest probably in this state's history, no council has been presented a $28 million cheque from an initiative they created. We created this. This is not a government grant or anything else. 28 million? Well, 22, you know what I'm saying. Oh, maybe snapped on the neck as motion. I didn't even think that was going through there. $22 million. But what an outstanding sort of record that is. There's another council around the place that can outbuild us good on them. But that's a part of that record that we can stand on. And there are many other examples too. And I think probably the classic is from Richard's own vision of bringing the stimulus program to this current chamber. The 15-year program that we brought forward and done in 3, with all our town streets, our curtain guttering, the footpaths, all of those things. Coming through in my early days, I used to cycle through here on my training runs and so forth. There was potholes everywhere in the town. Was, very, very ordinary. I go out there now, it's quite the opposite. It's very unordinary. It's come alive and it continues to improve and has for the last few years. Stage by stage, things are being done and shops are being filled and places becoming very vibrant. And that's a far cry to those early days when I used to go and ride my box with them. Who the hell wrong with that? But I do, and I have, and I will continue to. It's a great place. And the council, whoever they were at the time, who started the change in attitude to getting things done, to be congratulated and be commended on that. And I think Brian Carr was obviously a key player in that school. And it was remiss of me also not to mention Brian's departure. We all know I've written to everyone from my theories. I've written to all his colleagues as well. And some of the responses I've had back have been quite extraordinary. And I've got one here. I can just have leave of the meeting just to perhaps read this to you because it says it all in how Brian has brought this council along to where we are now as completely justified being the most progressive in the state. It's here. Councillor, if you can just indulge me for a moment. This letter is from Michael Higginbotham personally. Dear Mayor Bill, thank you for letting us know about Brian Carr being retiring later this year. Oh, sorry, I need a second to leave the meeting. Someone like to second that? Thanks, Councillor Simon. All those in favour? Okay. Dear Mayor Bill, thank you for letting us know that Brian Carr will be retiring later this year. I can only agree that it will be a sad loss to life and local government. Brian has an outstanding career in public service, and I'm sure he will have invested his time, energy, and ensuring his experience will carry on in staff he has mentored and trained who will now take his place. I have always advised Brian's positive and good-natured outlook, the unwavering dedication to White Regional Council, and a better future for the citizens. His big picture thinking and community mindset, the way he has carefully nurtured and developed his team. I know Brian had a long-term commitment to local government. His achievements are on record, not only in White, but also by the councils he has served for here and in the state. I also say that the privilege has been to work with Brian and his excellent team on our projects in life. I'd be grateful if you would pass on our very best wishes for a well-deserved retirement, together with our best wishes to Richard Dodson in undertaking the role of acting CEO. And that's signed by Michael Higginbotham. And I think that came from Michael's heart too, and his own pen. That's the difference. But we've got a number, and Professor Dennis Hardy, who was involved in the Roosevelt project, you may have called. I think he's now the Dean of the University in the Seychelles. A letter from Professor Hardy, similar sentiment. So we've had a good team here. We've been mentored by a very fine CEO. In fact, we've mentored 4 CEOs of been other councils now through the empowering staff. And that brings that energy to this chamber and gets us being prepared to make decisions to get onto the front foot in big projects. And that's what we've been doing. Right. 10.3 councillors, thanks for your indulgence there. The code amendment part 306 Schwartz Road Gore Belt. Any questions in relation to that matter, councillors? To the information, Councillor Simon?
And that's just a confusion, but it's probably my issue, but it says the Envision Group has engaged these people with this code amendment, but I thought in the confidential access isn't it? Bill and Wood or Higginbotham is actually doing that, so I'm a bit confused about that.
Sorry, through the chair, separate matters, basically. The confidential items are concerning property-related matters. This matter is concerning 306 Schwartz Road, which is a property that sits outside of Rosewood, the one in the bottom corner next to the railway line, just north of Edward and Burbanks Road. And looking at a code amendment to rezone that. So, yeah.
So how is land Vision Group is people that don't send eaves that's totally disconnected from that parcel of land? How's that? Does it make any sense?
In terms of not contiguous property, certainly, but they're looking at there's another property in the same Rosewood, or they're looking at including it, Stephen Patt's included in the broader Rosewood growth area. And that's part of the consideration that's been put forward and considered. That's very accessible at the moment, or will be once it goes through the process.
Thanks, Craig. Councillor Hill?
Yeah, Mr. I'm a little bit lost on this instruction on this. So we look to expand the Rosewood expansion area. residential, is that what's happening here?
So through the chair, a couple of points there, the council's not, so it's not aware.
No, they won't be there.
Just to be absolutely clear. No, this land, if you turn your mind back to 2016, was originally part of the area that was considered for
The original block, but not in the.
in the original rezoning proposal, it was included up to the point of signing the interim infrastructure deeds and land management agreement, and it wasn't advanced at that point. So it had progressed through the process up to that key stage. It didn't proceed at that time, so it was left as a primary production zone at that point, and has transferred into the new planning and design code as rural zone land. There's an area about, it was an allotment of about 29 hectares that sits next to Rosewood.
It's on the, which side of the road?
It's on the eastern side, so it's, the right line is on the western boundary.
Okay,
Yeah, they're isolated parts.
Yeah, I'll say,
Yeah, sorry, never mind.
I know the block.
Yes.
Thank you. See, I'm not very surprised.
I think large, just very honest. Anything further on that matter, councillors? If not, 10.4, the code amendments are Old Sturt Highway, New Wiltshire. This is a property that's on the boundary of our region, Barossa. It's a bit complicated. Any questions there, councillors? Is it more of a housekeeping matter, do you think, or is it something that we should really know about?
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, it's certainly something council should be mindful and aware of. It's not a process that we're running, so we have a different role in terms of what would have occurred under the normal or the former development plan amendment process. But certainly, at the right time for both of these code amendments, we'll to bring a report to this meeting for consideration of council on any particular matters that as administration will be raised and considered by the minister as this is progressed.
Thanks. Any questions, councillors? Move on. Here at Centre Upgrade, thank you, Ned. It was an excellent report. I very much enjoyed reading it, and so pleased that here at Centre is moving on, and it's a great facility. I had a great pleasure. My first official duty as mayor was to open that centre, and I would have liked to have taken all the credit, but couldn't. My conscience wouldn't let me. I think Mayor Hornsey and his council actually led the drivers along with creating this team for the drivers and building and giving grants and so forth to build that facility. But it's a wonderful facility. We've had one council meeting there, and I'd like to see us do that more often. I think it's important that as a council that we can move around, we're flexible, we can go out to our communities, they can't really come to us, you go to them. We did this in Central Valley, and our communities are 200 kilometres away, still manage to go to their communities once a year and have a council meeting. We can do it there, surely we can do it here. And I know we've got issues with technology, but that shouldn't stop us. That should enhance the reason why we can go. Because of the technology, we can, not because of it, we can't. But it is an excellent centre, and I think they've all been experienced. Any questions, councillors?
But just a comment, Mr. Mayor, I had a reason to call them there for coffee the other day. And the wonderful, it's a beautiful spot, and I was the only one there. It was a real shame because it's a great asset. So I just hope that we can keep it alive long enough to build records to sort of establish clientele that comes there regularly.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it's a beautiful setup.
Well, Belgravia seems to be on the ball. I mean, we've got the Young Citizen of the Year out of that, and also that young man went on to win the state Young Citizen of the Year, and he's got his training and his capacity to win that award from his experience as Hewitt.
He floated my glass up very quickly. But I'd like to set my money in the spirit.
Yeah, that's true. Any further questions, councillors? Thank you, Megan, and thanks for your faith in this place. So I know you've got a lot of faith in the Hewitt Centre, and it comes out in your reports. You're excellent. Recommendation on the top of page 15. This is a report through information we received in the contents hearing noted by council. Someone want to move that way? Councillor Dean and Councillor Jason, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. Reports for decision, this is the one with Brian's resignation. I think I've said this much that I need to say, and if anyone else would like to make any comment in relation to this matter. We have some, Councillor David?
I'm surprised that we're actually talking about this in open session of council. We're mentioning a senior member's current salary and proposed salary going forward. Is everybody comfortable with that? You especially, Richard?
I might deflect to Kimberley to respond to the technical side of that, if you're open to, Kimberley.
Through the chair, given that the salary is already on public record on the salary registers, there's no confidentiality around the salary.
Yeah, thanks, Kimberley. That's true. These salaries are on public records, so it's not really news that people don't know already. Any further questions, councillors?
I thought we dealt with this issue when, a couple of months ago, when we were looking at forward planning for people that were going to be taking over jobs, that we made an allowance for the deputy CEO to fill in for when the CEO wasn't here for those periods of time. So I'm going to admit why we're now going through another round of, if you like, pay rises when Brian doesn't finish work until the 7th of October, yet we seem to be paying out more and more cash for two acting CEOs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can make an answer, certainly one part of that question. Yes, you're quite right, we did deal with this in part previously, when Richard was appointed as deputy CEO, and all the process around that. There is a distinction though in the Act of when the CEO is absent and the position of CEO is vacant. So that's the reason for this report. So Richard is the acting CEO up until the 7th of October. But because of the vagaries of the wording of the Act, we then have to appoint a person to act as the CEO when the office is vacant. And it becomes vacant from the 10th of October, so we need to appoint someone separately to act in that role. Now, our succession policy suggests that, and in line with your comments, that the deputy CEO is appointed as that, being the nominated officer. This is just formalising that wording basically, if you will, in my mind at least.
Thank you, Richard.
Well, just further the question of that, I haven't got a problem with what you're suggesting. What I have got a problem with is Brian is on full pay of whatever package it is, 290 grand a year, okay? Richard only provides his own motor car, is that correct? Now, Richard is going to cop a nice little pay rise interim, 8% of Brian's current wage, and in his current job, he also gets a motor vehicle provided, but contributes $7,000 per annum towards it. So I don't see why that any future pay rise that Richard may get shouldn't kick in until after the 7th of October, when Brian has farewelled from the council. That's just my opinion.
Councillor Dean?
Just pick up something Councillor noted earlier about spending money. If this motion is passed, assuming that it takes probably until April, sometime in April to appoint a new CEO, the net saving on that envelope likely was something between $16,000 and $17,000. I think you got to work your people for that. Was that something in that?
Through the chair, around that figure that you
Yes,
just
so
mentioned.
in fact, there's, this proposal actually saves money compared to, Brian being in the position, up until April next year.
So that's based on the appointment of the CEO by next April.
Yeah, given that, we can't start that process due to the, election and, caretaker period, so on, and the need to, get over Christmas and New Year, that my estimate is it will probably be about then by the time the process, which is fairly a lengthy process, has to go through. So, on that basis, we actually are saving money compared with, the status quo existing currently. About 16 grand or 17 grand.
Councillor
Make a comment. So I totally agree with Councillor David's decision that up until that, Brian's still working, he's then paying in full, that I think it would be reasonable to just keep Richard's pay as it is. But my question is, why, once Richard is a full CEO, why doesn't he have full pay of the CEO? No, I'm going the other way, thinking, yes, until he's just filling in the position of an absentee, or that's okay, until the 10th of October. But afterwards, he should be a full CEO, so he should technically get the full pay.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from there. And that makes sense.
The CEO's pay is an arbitrary figure, and Brian's pay is a rate because of his experience. So, CEO's rate of pay does vary. So, it's, you know,
That's right.
Brian's payment, not necessarily Richard's pay.
Correct. We could easily, I suppose, consider Richard being paid what he is paid now, and there's a higher duty allowance on the days that Brian isn't here, like today only. Over this period of time, Brian's probably going to take that quite a bit of his annual leave, but he's not here, whereas Richard will be standing in as CEO. So this probably just streamlines that situation until it wasn't, the accountants don't have to keep going back, well, he wasn't here that day, he was here that day, not that day, and so forth. I don't know if that's just being too simplistic, but that's how it sounds to me. It's easy to give a high duty allowance in that interim till the appointment is made as CEO.
Mayor Bill, can I ask Richard whether he would like to comment on what will be different about his duties between now and the 10th of October, I think this 10th of October, compared with what's happened in the past in his deputy CEO role? That might be useful to make that.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Look, I think there are two very clear differences for me between the deputy role and a transitioning role and then an acting role. And certainly, I can say from last August when I was appointed as deputy, you know, the differences in things that I've been involved in have been quite significant. And those differences have actually been at an organisational level, where I've probably provided a lot more support and been involved in a lot more issues across our organisation. So that is where I think the deputy is. Through the transition role, I think what we're going to see is many issues, both internal and external to the organisation, that it simply is not worth Brian getting involved in. So he will still undertake a statutory role, but there are meetings, involvements, committees, which is not worth him being involved in now because those will extend well beyond his tenure here. Equally, the process of going through the election period, which for our council will start in the month of August as we go through the candidate briefing sessions. These are all sort of issues that I will get involved in and carry right through beyond obviously October or the early part of October and through into November. So things like that, things like getting involved now in the in issues where Brian traditionally would have he will step back from because he simply won't, he will hand those over to me now. So that's the real difference in the transition, and obviously then in the acting role, it will be completely different because there will be no other person for me, it will be me, so to speak. So they're probably the three phases and probably why that was put into the report as it was. Not by my doing, by June and Kimberly, who provided that advice through to the mayor. So I hope that's helped.
Thank you, Richard. Anything further, councillor Simon?
Yeah, welcome to the $1 million question. So who's going to do Richard's job if he's the CEO?
That's a reasonable question.
And no, they won't be paying $1 million for that. Otherwise, I'd stay in it. But yes, I think we're probably recognising that there's going to be some disruption to our team in me moving out, whether that is up until a CEO is appointed or if it's me moving out. But we're certainly starting to think about that process, and again, during that transition period, we will make sure we're covered off on all of that so that our capital program, as it's been presented to the council, continues seamlessly.
Yeah, that is a bit of a concern because someone's got to do what someone does now. Good job. And unfortunately, you've got some very good colleagues who step up. Councillor David?
Just one further question. What we just saying, Richard's going to step up to do Brian's job. Does that mean to say that we're going to be up for another council car for whoever's going to be filling in for you as deputy CEO or manager or whatever your previous title was before? Because obviously that position requires a car to get out and see the roads and the district and what have you. Is that another vehicle on the council list?
Yeah, through the chair, I think there's a number of questions in that. So the answer could be yes, and equally, like other general managers, they've chosen not to. So until such time as we get there in a permanent sense, we won't know. And in all fairness, that looks like it's likely to be probably March, April of next year. And it could well be that we need to, put something into the budget for that. But yeah, I hope that's answered the question. I can answer the question better without any commercial constraints around car purchasing.
Anything further?
Just one last point, just to take up what Councillor Dean said. My simple arithmetic, I don't see how we can establish cost saving when we don't know what we're going to pay the new CEO. Are we just presuming that we're going to pay the same package as what we currently pay Brian Carr now, 290k, 300k a year?
In answer to that, the saving I was talking about was up to the appointment of the new CEO, nothing to do with the new CEO whatsoever during the acting phase. Beyond that, that will be a council decision as to what we are depending on what the number of factors, including some advice on that. And I believe there is a band now that you have to have your CEO salary within, depending on the size of your council. So that's to some extent determined by other people. Got some more stuff.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll go through you. Councillor Dean is quite right. The remuneration tribunal, who we discussed before, are currently working on CEO banding for councils across the state. Now, we're none the wiser at the moment as to where that's all going, but certainly a new contract with a new CEO negotiated at a point in the future has to have regard to that banding. So we're yet to see what that might look like. But picking up Councillor Dean's comments, I'd suggest it's probably likely to be a range of figures, and suggesting that we might be a level 3 council if they use the same criteria for CEOs as they do for mayors and councillors. So that information is still to come, but it's at a point in time in the future that we need to have that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. I think that clarifies that too, Mr.
It does, it still leaves me with the open mind thinking that whatever savings you are saying is purely a guesstimate, because you don't know what those figures are going to be.
No.
So you're purely guessing that this is the rate. Now, obviously, it's not going to go down when a salary review happens, it always goes up. It's just the degree of what it will go up, is what I would say.
That's a certainly important question for the future, but in terms of this motion, there's nothing in this motion. This motion is simply to do with the period between now and the appointment of the new CEO. This now as during the transition phase, and then the next phase is as an acting CEO while the process occurs to appoint the new CEO. So this is just to do with that, and the points that the council David raised are an important one, but they're for the future, not part of this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Dean. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Simon.
Yes, there's one more thing that I think is important. That discussion that usually an employer and employee has to have, in my opinion, they're uncomfortable. So the council membership 10 plus of the direct employer of our CEO, our only employees. So we've employed them for, let's say, 15 years, and we just given him a 3-year extension. I mean, it wasn't according to my will, but we did. And then, literally weeks after this was publicly made in the bonnet that he's been our new CEO for the next 2 years, he puts in his resignation. So the question, well, I have to start this way. Literally the day, and I was over in Switzerland, so there was some other 3 hours. The day that thing came out in bonnet, I got a few phone calls asking me all sorts of questions. What is going on? Is there any golden handshake? Is there any payouts? All this sort of stuff. And this is pure unfounded speculation. However, this is crucially important. This just showed me straight away that the first reaction out of the public is what's going on? What is going on? So to nip this in the bud straight away, we need to have a clear reason why this is happening. So just to read the Frank Cross personal mail to us, he said, however, recent events, personal health and family consideration have led me to vary my position. Now, if you look just at recent, just personal health and family considerations, there's no question about that. It's a personal thing. There's no question yes. But since you put in recent events that, again, just prompts a whole bunch of speculation. But what I'm trying to say is, it is crucial that we put out something into the public telling them why this is happening, because it looks odd, to say the least, and that's not my opinion. I'm not saying I'm with that. What I'm saying is that I've got numerous phone calls and people talking to me about what's going on, what's happened, why does the CEO has just got a 3-year extension quit straight away? That doesn't seem like a long thing. So what I think we should do is put out some sort of statement to clarify, to nip this sort of speculation about. I just wonder how we can do that. And if Brian would be sitting there, I would want to ask him personally why, what's going on, what are the recent events that led you to this, if he's so such inclined to tell us, but I think we'll be quite more.
That's why it's business, isn't it? It's business, and I'm a bit surprised that you're getting all these phone calls. I mean, I haven't had one. You would think if there's so many people out there that are concerned about that particular statement, I get a phone call. I didn't get a phone call from the press about that particular statement. They got the media release. But nothing. But we were getting these phone calls. How many?
Well, it's about 3 phone calls and about, well, go back about 2 or 3 people just sort of seeing the streets. So people are interested about this, and then you have to make this. First of all, we all thought he's not going to go on. That was a big story. We all thought this is going to need a new CEO, then big surprise is going to extend for 3 more years. And then even bigger surprise now he's not going to go. So you have to admit the way this went is raise questions, all I'm saying. It has raised questions, and we need to make sure that we answer those questions before any silly speculation go out there that we really can't at all, that don't want to have. And I can tell you, these speculations, rumors are already brewing out there. I've heard them, so.
Yeah, look, through the chair, and I think it would be unfair of us to speculate publicly, you know, why Brian is leaving. But you know what I can say, and I think Brian would be happy to speak to you personally about that, and I would encourage you to call him. But the reasons are certainly of a personal family nature. And there has been nothing more to it. You know, no one was more surprised than probably I was, up and probably Bill when he returned from leave. Yeah, it very much was, you know, Brian's, you know, personal reasons that certainly changed very much between the previous reports that were coming through, or the discussions that occurred in March, and then signing the contract in April through to June when you know when things changed with Brian. As I think it'd be unfair of us to speculate. I think I would encourage people to you know, pick up the phone and give Brian a call and speak to him personally about that. So I think he'd be very comfortable sharing where he's at.
If I may, I totally agree that those speculations are online and stupid, but I'm just saying, and I totally believe that there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying that's what I hear, and I think we just need to make sure. I'm glad you talked to him that that's no issue, but that still doesn't solve the problem that other people might think different things and spread rumors. I'm wondering if maybe I can talk to Brian, maybe he's comfortable with putting out some sort of statement that clarifies the position that nobody can come up and city rules, that's all.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Simon. Councillor Jones?
Just reinforcing what Councillor Zeller said, I've had 3 phone calls and been stopped in the street twice. And I won't repeat some of the scuttlebutt that I've heard about the reason why Brian's gone. And what I said to them was, unless you're very sure of your facts, I'll be very, very careful what you say and what you repeat. Because all what you've just mentioned to me is pure fantasy. And that's where I left it.
Whenever changes like this occur, you get the rural working with the reality in small communities, as we want to do, I guess. So we just have to wear some of that. But the important thing to remember is that Brian has a contract in place which specifies how it is to cease being an employee, and he's followed that to 11, and therefore anything that more than what he's given is really up to him. And you know, but I certainly agree that the private phone call would be a good way to actually better understand that for yourself, and then that may help in countering some of the rumours that inevitably happen, but you can't avoid that, it's just otherwise.
Any further questions or comments, councillors? We have a motion there. Somewhere that move it, right? Is Councillor Lynn, who would like to second that motion? Councillor Hill, all those in favour? Those against? Casting vote. And why casting vote is we go with the motion as the recommendation of some, Councillor Chair. So can I call for a division, please? You will call for a division, Councillor Mason. All those in favour of the motion, stand behind their chair, please. station. Thank you, councillors. We can move on. Thank you for all those who contributed to that discussion. Very much debate. We should call it. I think we're on to 11.2. Correct, Richie? 11.2? Yeah. Say our Wildlife Foundation incorporated planning opportunities. I think you might recall we had an extremely excellent report from this group at our last meeting before last. I wasn't at the last council meeting. And I'm really pleased to see that they've followed up on this. So I'll open up the discussion. Any points, any questions, councillors, in relation to this report? Councillor Simon?
First, I just want to comment that Sophie about the excellent submission. It's very professional, thorough, and comprehensive. I mean, it's a good submission of what they want to do, plans they may use, numbers and stuff. That's well done. If you want to indulge for a second, but there's council is aware that there's a new state of the environment report being put out by the Australian government that comes up every 5 years. It's the report on the environment, and if I can just read through it's on the key findings. The number one key finding is in a rapidly changing climate with unsustainable development and use of resources, the general outlook for our environment is deteriorating. So this is the key finding of a 5-year study about the trajectory of the Australian environment. And if I can, one little paragraph, our inability to adequately manage pressures will continue to result in species extinctions and deteriorating ecosystem conditions, which are reducing the environmental capital on which current and future economies depend. Social, environmental, and economic impacts are already apparent. So I just want to point out how important it is that we do something about the environment more than we are doing each. We need to do more, and therefore I'm obviously very much in favor in support of Sophie's work, and yeah, put on, and we should do more of it.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Simon, and thanks for bringing your passion for this type of project to the council too. It's important that we've got that balance there. We are looking after our environment, and that we're demonstrating that by supporting these sorts of projects. I'm sure that I've got to put a recommendation first and make sure that we are. But any further questions, councillors, or comments? If not, I'll put that recommendation. So someone wants to move that. Please, Councillor Jason. Second, Councillor Simon. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. I'm sure the Wildlife Foundation is very pleased, and Andrew Phil, and the work he does is outstanding. So he'll be pretty close to going on with it. 7.3, road process order trade lane in Trilling. I don't think this is going to bring us too much pain and suffering, but I've got a recommendation there, or any questions in relation to this report. No questions on. Yes, Councillor Canali. Someone like to second that? Councillor David. Any further comment? No further comment. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. Several right service information line maintenance agreement. Again, there's a recommendation there that's pretty straightforward. Any questions or comments? Councillor Bill and Councillor Simon. All those in favour, those against, that's carried. They're doing a wonderful job, that Seversville Road Business Alliance and those two information guys. Excellent. Revocation of committee land at Kukunda. It's a recommendation about runway on the page. Councillor Simon.
Sorry,
Councillor David.
I'll declare a conflict of interest in this matter, and this will be a little while. My business dealings with something better than this side, but I was talking like. That's, we've got 6, including you, that's 4.
Councillors, are there any questions or comments in relation to this matter? Councillor Simon.
I just have one question, it might be simple, but it looks like we're paying them $5,000 fee for the site as it is right now, as a like maintenance fee, or maintenance contribution, whatever you want to call it, council explain that. So technically, if we take a third, technically, if we take a third of this site away, we don't need quite as much money anymore, is that the correct thing?
I don't think that.
Sorry, I heard up to a lot of conflict of interest. That's a very, very good question.
I don't know that one.
Pete, would you like to respond to that?
Through the chair, that was an interesting question, thank you. The management fee that is provided to the community group is more aligned to the services they provide, help with their insurance and maintenance of the building. That's not changing. The verification of or excising a portion of the land will actually assist and make the job a little bit easier, because it is all volunteers that are out to the building as well.
Thank you, Megan. Any further questions, councillors? If not, someone like to move the recommendation?
Move it.
Councillor Dean, someone like to second that? Councillor Simon, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. So I said, I'm moving on. Oh, thanks, Graham. This next matter, councillors, open point 6, the local government finance authority of South Australian general meeting. I was really so pleased to read this and to read that our manager of finance, Nigel Graves, is prepared to put his hand up to be part of that. I'm sure anyone who's had anything to do with Nigel at this stage will find him to be absolutely outstanding professional in how he operates and what he's put to this council in terms of our financial planning and arrangements. He's been very kind to me. He even gave me a call the other day and said, look, you were at the meeting, but I'll run you through all of the rate program and what was discussed and discussed at the last meeting. He took me through that, word by word. And he didn't have to do that. He took the initiative. He's an excellent operator, and I think we've made a great appointment in Nigel. And it'd be nice to see him really supported with this particular issue here, if it's possible. So I have a recommendation down the bottom of the page, if someone like to move that way. Councillor Peter, does someone like to second that? Councillor David, any further comments or discussion, councillors? All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thanks, councillors. What a good representation, I'm sure he'll be appointed to that board. And Councillor Annette too has also been our delegate, their voting delegate also, and I'd like to see that remain. She does an excellent job, and she understands the local government association and the matters pretty well. Next one is the go for deputy chair. I thought I might have a conflict of interest here, but I've been assured that I don't, because I'm already an appointed officer of the Regardless Group. This is their coming elections shortly. There's a recommendation that halfway down the page.
I'll move that. I'll move that, Chair Bill, and thank you for offering to continue to do that job because I think you should have used that position.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Denning. Can someone second that? Councillor Bill. Yeah, it's been quite an honour to be the deputy chair. I have been now for 3 years, I think, and 16 years around that table, and I sometimes feel like I'm trying to pass the baton, but then you think, why, let's have a free and fair election. If someone else puts their hand up as well, which possibly will, see what happens. But we're showing that we're prepared to do the job at least, and that's the important thing. The role of chair will probably come up, and I've been approached in that sort of area, but I don't think it's for me at this point. I think this role here is hard enough, but I think there'll be another one for 15 years as well. Totally out of control, it's only partly out of control. So I'll put that recommendation, if someone to move that way, I think we've got to move from second, that's all in favour. As against, that's carried, thank you. Motion down, I can brag, the meeting was unanimous. No, it wasn't unanimous, half a council idea. Council, we're going to page 34, that's questions around notices, our on-notice funding is our first item there. No questions on notice, there's no questions without notice. Councillor David?
One question without notice. At the last council meeting, I asked for a report to be produced regarding the current situation with the old bowling club site. How many lots of land that we sold, etc., etc. And I just wonder, I thought there might be something in the agenda for this month, but there's nothing there. Can that be put on the agenda next month?
Yeah, through the chair, our apologies on that. It did slip, but it will be on the August agenda.
Just as a, on the top of the head, how's it looking up there? Oh, Megan, I'm going to put you on the spot, just a very broad overview.
Through the chair, the 4 units, Law Community Homes have been sold for Christmas, December last year. 5 allotments, all 5 allotments that face White Street, as of the 30th of June, have now all sold and settled. We are now reviewing the last quote for demolition of the old club rooms for that to commence the next, or stage 3 of that whole project, which will be the final stage. So once the building's demolished, we'll then go through the requirements of the land division application, create 2 parcels, and then put them on market.
Oh, thank you. That's excellent. Does that answer most of your questions, Councillor David?
That answers 90% of the questions I have. The final question is, how much cash are we going to recoup from it based on the current sales of the land up there? Making a bit of a guesstimate of what it's going to cost you to demolish the old building there and tidy up the site.
Through the chair, there are figures I don't have access to at the moment. I wasn't involved in the initial part of the project, so I'll have to go back and review that to then know what these people I have been involved in. But that should be in the report, which should be commenced for August.
All right, thanks very much, councillors. Please, presentation, sorry.
Just for a chair, just a question, and I was approached the other day, probably Director Megan this one, about the museum. Apparently the hole in the roof is still leaking, and the septic in the building next door, which is being fixed, is still leaking. Are we any wiser on any of progresses on that?
Through the chair, I need to be careful how much I do say, because of confidentiality around part of the situation. The works with the museum, we have been speaking with contractors to ensure this access. The property next door, we will be able to enter and do further works there as of, we're hoping next week. We can't do much more to that.
Okay.
No, thank you, Megan. Thanks, Councillor Davis. Anything further? Motions on, sorry, Councillor Dodd.
But in that one question there, I've been approached by farmers down towards Road, and they've been asking about the drainage system. I don't know if you had some issues earlier last year, late last year. They just, I hadn't been around, so I don't know what the weather was like, but they were saying there's been flooding again, and it's like, they just don't know what's going on. I'm not sure if there's anything happened, or if there's any answer to be there on that.
So, through the chair, thank you, Councillor Zeller. Yes, we have the same reports, basically, if one of the basins topping over in a recent event, there's been some erosion of the wall. Lisa Savio from our development services team to follow that up with the developer. And in fact, I understand that there was work scheduled to begin this week, it might have been today from memory. So the relevant developer is aware of that and is taking, we'll be keeping an eye on that and monitoring its progress.
Yes, Councillor, I had a call from Peter Kent today. You know, a good mate of Peter's, he's a good man. But he looks after that region out there pretty well. He knows every little follow. But he did mention that to me, so I'm glad it was raised. Thanks, Councillor Tom. Anything further, councillors? If not, well, we have a motion on notice here from a motion on notice from a councillor from the report that was placed for the last council meeting. And this is a follow-up on that. There's an unsealed roads motion about notice by councillor Dean. Would you like to speak to that, councillor?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor Bill. In that report, there did list a number of different approaches that might be used. And this is an issue with road or federal road, for example, particularly the first 4 kilometres of that gets corrugated early in the summer and nothing you can do in the way of grading Vista, and there's a bit of alternative that might work for roads of that nature. There are 3 or 4 other similar kinds of roads, and but anything we do will probably provide more funding than we currently spend for those kinds of things, so that's why it needs to be done as a coming year to be part of the following year's budget. So I'll see if there's any other discussion before I move the motion.
Yeah, thank you for raising this, councillor Dean. I think that all the councillors will be aware that this question comes up constantly. You know, maintenance of some of these roads that, you know, just because of the way we do business with our roading system, unless we change that, it's never going to, nothing's going to change. So this was a step in the right direction. Thank you, councillor. Councillor Bill?
If there's me, this is really serious. The product we're using, the roadside rock, just isn't suitable material. We can have that really good stuff out of Carsway Road, which is magnificent stuff, but it's because of the weed infestation. But it's really a waste of time for us to, in my opinion, to keep putting on the same stuff at the moment, because Pepper Road's a classic example. And although it's on the big difficulties shifting into the eastern area, we just throwing money, good money, down into dust, really, it's just going dust. So it really is serious. Maintenance being an operator. I know Richard's looked at it a lot often, but we're just wasting it. There's some solution. We could seal everything, Richard, couldn't we? That would be probably the best way to go. But putting roads that are up really is a waste of money.
Thanks, councillor. In totally your opinion, you lived on these roads and worked on these roads for a lot of years. Councillor Peter?
I have a suggestion. That is the material that's being generated by the work that's being done on Ninwood Road. It's surplus, it's waste as it is now. Council could acquire that material and stockpile it and use it, or take it directly to some required locality. It's just something that arose, a comment that was made to me, and I think it's a positive.
Thank you, councillor Peter. May I suggest that this matter be put on the agenda for the infrastructure meeting, and any council members who are got interest in this particular topic, we invite to come along to that infrastructure meeting. We've had excuse me.
This motion actually on here puts this topic to the infrastructure committee meeting, and in that discussion, the least finding would be discussed.
That's what I'm thinking.
So I'm happy to, further discussion, move that motion, Medfield.
Thank you, councillor Dean. Councillor Peter, that was a deputy, councillor Davis, seniority in the corner here. I'll go with that. Councillor Peter, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. But I think that's the right way to go. Well done, councillors. Okay, there's no motions without notice. We move into the confidential section, councillors. The first matter, I've got a recommendation at the top. Cheers, Fabio. I didn't welcome you earlier on, I'm sorry.
Sorry?
I didn't welcome you to the meeting earlier on.
That's fine.
My
That's all right, you're fair to me, so that's fine.
You're about mistake number 54.
That's okay.
So I have a recommendation on the top. You see the corner? Yes. We have a recommendation, a further recommendation, about the page council, that this matter be kept confidential for those reasons until the matter is finalised. Someone like to move that way, thanks, councillor David, someone like to second that? Councillor Jason, all those in favour? Halfway down page 38, that this matter be kept confidential until the matter is finalised. Someone like to move that way? Thanks, councillor Jason and councillor David, all those in favour? Good. Excuse me? Councillors, I can take this now to our next meeting. Should we start again? Our next meeting, and thank you very much for your attendance tonight and a really good, robust debate, lots of good outcomes, and I thank you for that, and I close the meeting.